Hi, everybody. It's Chris F. Walker with the Christian Influencer Convention. Thanks for watching and thanks for joining. I have got the privilege today of getting to tie down for at least an hour. I get to have their time now. But Micah and Sarah are completely mine. I get to listen to their story. But the cool part is I'm recording all of it for you guys. You can hear their testimony. You can hear their stories. But the main reason why we're doing all this is obviously because on July 26th, we're going to have our big event in person. You guys are going to be spending a lot of time answering questions. But that means we're also not necessarily going to get a lot of time to hear your full story, and that's why I wanted to talk with you ahead of time. Just kind of hear a little bit more about how God's worked, how your platform came about. You know, there's a lot here. Obviously, you guys didn't just appear on the scene. So let me start with just saying, again, thank you for joining us. And can I ask you guys to open with just, in general, how did you end up getting a start at all? Like, I mean, everybody seems to be the craze today is everybody wants to be a YouTuber. You know, when I was growing up, everyone wanted to be an astronaut, but I don't know when that changed. But you guys out of nowhere here, you're like, holy crap, we're people with like influence. We have the ability to share messages. And how did that even come to be a thing?
Yeah, totally. Well, let me say first, thanks so much for having us. We're really excited to be able to share, and we can't wait for the event. It's going to be amazing. We're so honored to get asked to participate. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And it kind of, I feel like you're probably going to hear this story often, but it came out of COVID. And it ended up happening kind of by accident. We both have performing backgrounds. So we met actually on the Beauty and the Beast national tour, and that's how we met. And then so then after that, we kind of started pursuing more entrepreneurial ventures and kind of just took a step back from pursuing performing just because of the up and downness of it and just the instability of it. We wanted to get kind of like our financial security and foundation into place, and then like pursue it without having that be at the forefront of our minds the whole time. And so, and then COVID happened, the world shut down. I was bored. So then I just started like making dumb videos. And I think it was like the third or fourth one. It was on our honeymoon. It wasn't even intentional to be posted on social media. I posted that on TikTok. It went to like, I think 7 million views over a couple weeks. And it just like really started taking off from there. And that kind of started the bug of, oh, this could really become something or become, you know, a business. And so just started doing more content, and it started with just me. And then I started bringing her in, and those tend to do better. And of course, you know, she's the star, but
it's the combination of the two of us.
Yeah, the dynamic. Yeah. And so she would come in, and those would do well, and then I would do some on my own. Those didn't do well. So that was like, okay, fine. I guess we're going to become a couple content situation. And then from there, it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, it's funny because even though we have like, we're performers by nature, I'm naturally very introverted. So when he was like, we're going to make videos, I was like, why? Like,
she wanted nothing to do with it.
She's on stage, I'll be whoever you want, but in the background, not your business. Get out of here. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But then as we did it more and more, I was like, oh, this is actually really fun. And it like gives us a way to sort of scratch that creative itch as well as spend time together. And it turned out to be something that was really, really fun.
Yeah.
But it was accidental. It was a major blessing. A total accidental blessing. Was never in our plan to be influencers of any kind, really. So that was totally, in our opinion, that was very much a God thing, which is why we take what we do very seriously.
Yeah. And the intention was to always just like, the through line is like how to bring people joy, especially during COVID. It was like, how can we make people smile? How can we make people laugh? You know, just bring them joy or entertainment during this kind of bleak time. And that's still kind of our through line with this whole thing. And then on top of it, as we've built this following, it was like, God just like use us through this to glorify you in whatever way that looks, you know, and just like use us through that and formulate how we can best spread your word in the way that is organic and the way that people will then reach out or DM and be like, are you guys Christians? And this is even, you know, if you look at our content, we're not just like preaching God on everything. And so it's cool that people can see that as opposed to just hearing us say something or talk at them. They can kind of like see it, and then they ask that question, which I think is a cool thing, kind of going through action as opposed to just like what we say in words.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I remember when I was getting my start, my first book that I wrote, I wasn't planning on writing a book.
Yeah.
I was working through things and needed a way to do that. Next thing you know, it ends up, so I love how you said that it wasn't my plan. You're right. It wasn't my plan, but someone had a plan.
Yeah.
And I had to realize that, if that's the plan he's got in mind, then I got to start doing it his way instead of mine. So and I love that you guys, you hit on, literally the Great Commission in general, right? The whole point is spread the word, tell people about who he is, disciples making disciples making disciples. It's beautiful. Okay, so now you guys you kind of fell right into one of the areas that I love to target, and that was the fact that you're people who don't hide from your faith, but the purpose of your content is not about expressly sharing your faith. You create content about life and share your faith through it. I call those sniper evangelists. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times you don't even know they're a Christian. You're like, oh my gosh, this person's just sharing such beautiful words and so many things, and I really respect it. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, yeah, by the way, I get that from the Bible. And that's when you go, what? It makes you think twice because a lot of times when you hear truth and you just hear it from the Bible says, sometimes I grew up as an atheist. As soon as you told me the Bible says, the first thing I said is, we're done. I don't care what the Bible says. That's not. But you guys are sharing life and how your faith plays out in it. So what a great platform to start from in the first place. Let's dive into that if you don't mind a little bit. So let's take a step back and go to kind of our faith walk. You know what, you guys, I don't care who wants to go first, but how did you were you always Christians? Did you guys get brought up in the church? When did it become personal as a relationship? How does that play out?
Yeah.
You want to go through?
Yeah, sure. I grew up going to church, Christian church, Presbyterian church, which honestly, I'm not even sure what that means anymore. But that was the denomination I grew up in. And I always loved church because that's where my friends were. And I remember specifically in middle school going on like a church retreat and having like my first instance of kind of like sensing the Holy Spirit and feeling like, wow, how blessed am I that I get to be in an environment at such a young age? I was like 13, or I was like, I'm only 13 and I feel like I'm in this great environment where I'm really starting to formulate a personal relationship with God. And so that was like in middle school, I was all about it, like everything about church, activities at church, loved it all. Then I got into high school and church gatherings started to feel a little more cliquey, less like people were there for the right reasons, a little more like our church was kind of in an affluent area of town. It felt to me and to my parents, we all experienced the same thing, that people were there to show off their new car, to show off the bag that they bought, it just didn't feel like people were there for the right reasons. And so we stopped going to that church. And there were some other family things happening that led to that as well. But
I think they call that country club Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's a great way to put it. And then I just it's not that I stepped away on purpose. I just wasn't engaging with my faith the way that I had previously when I was younger. And then I went to college and I just got wrapped up in being a young adult and living my life and pursuing musical theater, which is a difficult thing to pursue. And I just had all of my focus on that. And it was never that I stepped away from my faith or stopped believing. I just wasn't pursuing an intentional friendship with Jesus the way that I had when I was younger. And it wasn't until I worked on a cruise ship, and the cruise ship was very, there's certain kind of lifestyle that happens when you're a performer on a cruise ship. And I just was I was newly out of college. I was in a serious relationship from college. So I was long distance with the person who I was with. And I just didn't want to engage in any of the behavior. So I spent a lot of time alone. And that time alone was when I rebuilt my foundation of individual relationship with God. And so I came off of that contract, that cruise ship. I was on there for 6 months, and I came off of that feeling more connected to God than I ever had in my whole life. And I was like, okay, I don't want to lose this in the normalcy of life. I don't want this to not become a priority. And of course it did. Like it did. I didn't continue with my habits and patterns the way I had when I got back into my normal routine. Fast forward, my younger brother was 3 years younger than me. He passed away. And that really shook it was just a traumatic experience. And so
that was when we met.
Yes, that was like right as we were meeting. I
never even met your brother.
I know, it's crazy. And so that experience was obviously extremely difficult. So I was like, well, the only thing that's going to get me through this is if I rely on God. So I journaled so much. I prayed constantly. I was just like, I need help to get through this. I need help navigating this grief. It was the first really difficult thing I'd ever gone through in my life. And so that was kind of what pulled me back to God. It's so interesting how as we've lived our lives, like it's the hardest times that draw us the closest to God. And so then I got really close to him during that time. And then 3 months after my younger brother passed away, I had the partner I had been with in college. He had proposed to me. We had gotten married out of college. We were married for a year and a half, and then he came out to me as gay. And so that was 3 months after my younger brother passed away. So in like 3 months, kind of my whole world felt like it was just falling apart. Yeah, like crumbling. And I felt it's a unique experience to go through that. It really shakes your self-image. It shakes like your ability to discern people's character. It was a whole journey that I had to go through to heal from that. But the only reason why I could was because of diving into my relationship with God and being like, listen, I need help. Like I cannot do this on my own, and I need help to forgive, to not be resentful, to not be angry, to not have any kind of ill will in my heart. And I couldn't do that on my own, and I knew it. And I knew that I needed help. And so when I look back on my journals from that time, I got so vulnerable with God, and it's crazy to go back and read it because he answered every single prayer that I wrote down, and maybe not in the timeline that I asked for in the when I was going through it, but he answered every single prayer that I wrote down, and who I became through that led to the relationship that we now have. And it was all, I only could come out on the other side of that in a semi-graceful way because of leaning into him. And ever since then, I haven't backed off. I haven't backed off my relationship with him, and it's been a priority ever since, because I kind of got to a place where I was like, I don't know how to navigate without you. I need you, because I've seen what happens when I'm without you, and I've seen what happens when I'm with you, and I need you. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Gosh, I might almost feel bad here having to follow something like that. No, Sarah, because just think about in your own testimony there, you've got, even when you started shying away from faith and you put yourself in a position where temptation and danger were prevalent every single day, you're literally caught on a boat with it. And yet, you're not going to escape it, but you still managed to pull away and withdraw and lean more on him as opposed to jumping into the world. And that's a feat of faith in itself, especially since you're questioning during that time. So kudos just for keeping the faith and being able to dive into that. But also it's just proof that, whether we know it or not, he's there, and he's got us if we just lean it. Man, that's beautiful. And then as far as the grief and everything that you've gone through, thank you for sharing, because there's people who probably, let's face it, there's people right now who are dealing with loss, and they're questioning, they're lost. They don't have the North Star to look towards, and you found it. That's who we look towards. So God bless. What a beautiful testimony. All right, Micah, no pressure. So let's.
Yeah. I feel like my story is like watching a children's story after. it's like Coco Melon over here. But I grew up in a Christian family, and in a big family. I'm one of 6 kids, and so we all went to church, and it was very much in the same vein of kind of you. It was just like we went to church because that's what our parents did, and that's what we were meant to do, and so that's what we did. But I didn't really grow a relationship with Jesus and God until I went to college. So then I started to cultivate it a little bit more. I lived on my own when I was there for like a year. And so I just had a little bit more time there. And then very similar to Sarah, you move out to New York, you're on your own. You have a little bit more reliance on God because you're on your own for the first time. You don't have your parents, and you're just kind of figuring things out for yourself. But then you get busy in your life and too busy for God and too busy I'm just too tired. I can't read the Bible today, or I can't, I slipped my mind. I didn't pray today. I've just been so busy. And that's just like the way that, that life goes unless you have an intentionality, which I didn't. And so I think meeting Sarah, seeing what she went through, that brought me to another level as well of just like my faith. I think we've grown each other's faith just by watching each other go through different things in our life, and experiences, even in our relationship too, of just like, oh man, there's no way we would be married today if it weren't for we counseled. We got premarital counseling. We have people in our life that have been able to fill our gaps and speak. We're huge advocates of counseling, therapy, that kind of stuff. If you find somebody that's really good, we have a faith base, so we found a faith-based counselor that could really help us through and navigate things, because otherwise we were just misfiring. We were not speaking the same love language. We weren't speaking in the same communication at all. I, just to be real transparent, because I'm sure this is a normal thing for men, but I was addicted to porn, hardcore. And so it was that was a big thing in our relationship.
It was difficult.
It was difficult.
You know what? Difficult. Look at, he can say that out loud to you right now. Yeah. And the fact that in the moment he could express what he was going through and that he wanted to put an end to it. I was like, oh my gosh, the transparency you're having right now was was so moving to me when we were kind of going through that journey in our relationship. Because
when it's things in the dark continue to grow. And if you don't bring them to the light, you'll never create breakthrough. And I just think that in itself, can also create breakthrough for other people as well that are maybe struggling with this. I know this is just a common thing for men, especially. No. I know, lust and all that stuff. I am probably in the minority with that, but that was a hard time in a relationship. But the biggest thing that took us through it is both of us we both wanted to grow in a relationship and wanted to better ourselves. And that's why we could have those hard conversations. Yeah. And also even if they were really not comfortable to have.
Some of them were so uncomfortable, man, thinking back on those. But also the desire to want to have God at the center of that, and to have counselors who could help us navigate that and build a relationship that was centered on the right things. Yeah. Because again, since we are being transparent, when our relationship got started, it was very
physical.
Yeah. It wasn't, our foundation was not, we weren't building on a healthy foundation, because I had just been through 2 traumatic things, and we were just two kind of, I was much more broken than you, but 2 people who weren't fully healthy, who were just, trying to figure it out.
And fill different voids.
Oh my gosh. Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. And so all of that to say that our faith journey of wanting to center our relationship on God is what led to us like eliminating the physical, deciding we weren't gonna do anything physical until we got married.
For 4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years. and
for 4 years, yeah, because that happened. We started on tour when our relationship started very, physical and sex driven. And then after that, I was like, I was just feeling, I guess, compelled, or just a tugging in my heart of like guilt and shame around it. And so I was just like, I want to know what this relationship is without this, because I see a future with you, and I want to see if this has fruit to it or whatever. And so cut it off. That was really difficult for her also.
For me, because of what I had just been through with my previous relationship, where I was like, well, I was already not the right fit in that arena in this previous relationship. So I had this trauma and self-image issues surrounding that were directly, it was just the perfect storm. Which ended up allowing us to really get honest with each other and lean into godly influence and people who could point us towards the truth of what the Bible says, why we should build a relationship of emotional intimacy without the physical aspect. Because when you grow up Christian, you hear that all the time, but
don't have sex before marriage.
No one ever told me specifically why.
Right.
It was like the rule. So the why behind it is so important, and the fruit that came from us doing that was, I'm such a big proponent of people doing that.
And she wasn't at the time.
No, I wasn't. I was
I'll be real clear.
Yeah, I was upset about it.
She was real upset. We broke up for 24 hours. And so here we are today.
That might be the shortest breakup I think I've heard of, by the way, is the 24-hour.
It might not even been 24. I think it was like around 12.
Maybe
13 hours.
Maybe
18 hours.
So you know what, Micah, the thing that you're sharing about the addiction with porn, that's actually an arena that it is a big deal, and it's a huge thing right now too. I actually kind of in the same boat. I was very much addicted to porn, and what's funny is I had to seek counseling, so I too understand, and I agree with that. But you just kind of hit for me, Sarah, on the factor that made it happen was why. It's not that these are the rules, follow the rules. I hate to say it. I'm not the kind of person that has a problem with breaking rules. I don't feel a lot of guilt doing it. But if I understand why, now there's a different element behind it. And so, for example, when I found out that in the concept of what I was doing to just kind of remove something that was, for lack of better words, an itch, and you would just scratch it so it would go away. But what it did to my wife's self-image was so harmful that all it took was her catching me one time to say, I will never do that to her again. It's not about me. It's I can't believe how much that hurt her. And that was a huge thing for finally getting me to, I didn't instantaneously solve me of my problems, but it's what finally said, you got to realize that there's an issue here. And it's that your actions, your consequences are creating issues for other people. And what's worse is they're the people you care more about them than you do your own self. So, the why factor is so huge. I love that you guys dove right into that.
That's the exact same story. She found it, she found out on my phone. Oh my gosh. I can't, it's so cringe to even think back on it. But it was...
you feel naked and ashamed right there, right?
He was like, hey, can you look this up for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. And she was looking over my shoulder to look. I open my phone and boom, it's right there on my browser. And I was like, how did I forget to X out of that? That's a rookie mistake. But it ended up being a God moment where it was, where I think it was that was meant to happen so that could be the switch. That can be okay, this is way bigger than fulfilling my needs. Yeah, I know the sun's setting and I'm getting most I'm going to get burnt on the face here as we go along.
So we'll have a red and a white version of you guys. That'll be perfect.
Exactly.
I love that as you bring it up is the concept of when we get married, it's not about us anymore. It's the sacrificial. You guys hit on that one too. It's everything I do has nothing to do with me anymore. It's everything I do is for for the other person. And can you think of a better image of Christ in general? Is everything that happens? Because obviously you guys had no shortage of. There's 4 kinds of love, and the eros is the passionate, physical. So that's easy. Everybody, and you know what? Truth is, even people who don't know God, they can come up with that stuff. But those other kinds of love, especially the kind that God shows, the agape, selfless, unconditional, regardless of what you do, I'm going to choose to love you. That's something that most people still don't even grasp. It's probably one of the biggest arguments against Christianity, is that people who don't understand that level of love. Mm-hmm. So I love that you guys, I'm sorry you had to go through it, but in a way you guys ended up, because of your testimony, showing it. Your examples of what it looks like to say it's not about the eros. It's not about there's philae, which is where, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. The I think it's called Philippi love, and that's the brotherly love. And I can't remember the third one, but the point is that there's other stuff out there. Love isn't a one encumbersome word. There's actions behind it, and there's consequences to those actions, and it's not just about you when it comes to what those consequences can do. So that's beautiful. What a testimony. So here I was worried that Micah was going to have to, up you somehow, and instead he just brought the game, man. That's beautiful. Yeah.
I forgot about all of that.
Oh,
that's beautiful too. That's great.
One of my favorite things when my wife, when I have old army buddies come, and we'll be in town, and we'll go have we'll be kicking back and having a dinner or whatever, and my wife will be there. But some of these people, I knew them before we knew each other. So when they show up, they're telling stories, and when she looks at me and she goes, "I don't see it," all I'm thinking is, yes, good. You don't need to know that guy.
That's growth right there.
That's right. God works.
Yes.
Okay.
It's true. And as we've gone through, and we're still young, and the struggle that we've gone through, I'm sure pales in comparison to so many other people's, but you can always play that game. But it's just as we've gone through things, it's grown our capacity. So the next thing that comes along, and we've gone through even more stuff, it's we just trust that God is going to use us through this, and just we're going to grow through this. We're going to be bigger, better on the other side of it. There's something to learn on the other side. We don't know what that is right now. It can be really difficult. It doesn't take away from the struggle. Everybody goes through it. There's really hard things, but if you get through it on the other side, and you just lean into God as opposed to blame Him, there's some beautiful things that happen out of it and come out of it. So that's what we've found. That's
beautiful. Again, another mic drop right there. You guys are just full of these today. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's. I think I once heard it described that once you understand the Christian faith, we never fight for victory; we fight from victory. Yeah, the battle was already fought, and it was already won. The difference is who won it, and we always want to make sure that we're the ones that did that, but that's not what we do.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
So that's beautiful. Just surrender to the one who's created it, and He's already overcome it. Your job is just to walk through it. And what's cool is He'll go with you. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So why don't we let's go back to since we're on God, let's stick on that for a second. But you guys have some great testimony. What I would love to hear now, if you guys have some fun stories here, would be examples of let me share a quick one. Was my wife and I went through a financial hard time as I was transitioning from one job into another, and for this one time period, we needed $200 to get our bills paid. We're screwed. I cannot find these last $200, and for the life of me, I'm doing everything I can, but I can't do it. And I finally just threw up my hands and I said, I got it. I can't do it. I just have to accept the fact that we're going to be $200 behind. Rolling into next month, I'm going to have to work even harder to get it caught up and everything. And I'm and with next month coming, there was too much on the plate. It's I can't handle this, and I don't know how we're going to do it. And surrendered it over. And on Monday morning, we go and check our mail, and in the mailbox was a check for $200 from my previous work because of something that had changed, and they shorted me $200 and they needed to now make up the difference. It happened on the day I needed it. And it's dude, that's a God moment. I even remember telling my wife, I was you want to see God show off? There's no way we're going to come up with that $200. And it's, $200 today I'm looking at going I could probably figure that out. Now I'm sitting, but at that time, $20 was I got it. I don't have it, man. I'm sorry. So come up with 200, that's reach for the stars. Well, God
Right.
delivered.
Yeah.
So have you guys got some fun stories like that where God's just kind of shown up?
Do you have anything that comes to mind right away?
Yeah, I would say my kind of, and this is, I don't know, it's in that same vein. But when I was going through what I was going through with my previous marriage ending and why it ended, I was just like, I was kind to him, but I was angry on the inside.
Sure.
And so when he had started to move on and he was with someone else, I found myself really like wishing ill will upon their relationship. And so as soon as I felt that little bit of grossness in my heart, I was like, I need your help, God. And I prayed for probably, I mean, I don't know, like 8 or 9 months, I would say. I consistently prayed for God to please help me with that unforgiveness and with that bitterness that was in my heart. And it was something that like I prayed it every day. And then one day I was praying the same thing that I always prayed. And for some reason I was just feeling extra emotional. So I was like crying as I was praying, and I was like, please, like, I just don't want this. I hate the feeling of wanting bad for someone else in my heart. Like, please help me get rid of it. And in that instant, it was as if like a vacuum sucked it out of my heart. Like, it was an instant, like, I'm at peace. I wish them well, and I have like I forgive. And obviously I had been praying and I had been leaning into God for months before that, but I just like, I've never had something that was so like, one moment I was just in such distress, and the next moment I felt completely at peace. And like, I was like, I could call them right then and there and be like, I hope you guys are doing great, with no negative emotions. And I was just like, wow, thank you so much. Like, that was clearly not me. That was clearly something that God had been brewing up over the past months that I had been praying. And that was the moment that he chose to give me that gift. But that was, and then I cried more because I was just overcome by the feeling of
she's
peace.
A crier.
Yeah, I am. It's like any emotion: happy, cry; angry, cry; sad, cry.
Just the default. Got it.
I did cry. Yeah.
If food tastes good, cry.
Yeah.
Crying over.
It's bad, cry.
Yeah.
Coffee's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, that was definitely a moment that really, I was so grateful for that moment. And I felt so close to God in that moment. And I knew that there was no other explanation besides him.
What I love about that story, and I love when you tell that story, is that it was 8 months of her praying consistently.
Yeah.
It wasn't like she prayed it and it happened. And I think that's what I want all the time when I pray something. You know, you want God to do it then. Like, I want this. No, you're a gumball machine. I put this in. You give me money.
Right, Genie's model.
Yeah. And so it's just, I just love that you were persistent and consistent, and that consistency over time, I think, was him just waiting for that. But for me, I would say, I like similar to you, but not like to that degree of like, I need this amount. But when I started before even meeting her, just tithing 10%, no matter where my financial situation was. And it wasn't always like, I was always like, oh, I hope I have enough for rent, kind of a thing. But I was just like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to surrender this, because that in itself, I think, is a form of surrendering, of just being like, this is not mine, this is yours.
Absolutely.
And regardless of how much I need that 10% or not. And ever since that, he just always gave me more than what I needed. It was just like, financially, he was just abundantly. And I think that was a little bit of a testimony of just that, like, trusting God with that, of just being, and then being able to steward our finances, where now we can give more than 10% and like give a lot more abundantly. And that's a big dream of ours too, is just to continue to have that be the case where we can then give 20% and like 30% and 40, and keep that percentage going higher and higher so that we can just impact more people.
So gorgeous. I once heard someone say, actually, and I kind of wanted to emulate it. I just haven't reached that point of life yet, but to get a point where I'm reverse tithing. I live off of 10%, 90% of it goes to God's kingdom. I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? But, Michael, that's a great testimony. I can attest to that too. When I wish I could claim it, but my wife is the one who said, we're tithing 10%, whether you like it or not. And, but ever since that's happened, things have changed financially. We're even with the hard times, it always shows up to be like, no, we're okay. Yeah. And we still tithe it's like the first thing that happens. Money came in, great, 10%. Now, what do we got?
Yeah.
Got first. I love it. Okay. And what's also really fun with some of your stories is I picked up on Sarah, you kind of had like a just touch the hem of the garment moment there, that woman was bleeding and praying and hoping for healing for however long. And then finally Jesus comes along and she says, if I can just touch his clothing. Mm-hmm. And you're saying for 8 months, I don't want the hatred in my heart because my hatred towards somebody else. And this is something that a lot of people don't realize. That's why counselors have to point this out. When we have hatred towards people, it has no alternative but to put hatred back on us too.
Oh, yeah.
Because we hate ourselves for having hate. Mm-hmm. And it's instinctive. We can't not do that. If we hate someone else, we'll hate ourselves in the process of hating them. Mm-hmm. Hate can't be a one-way street. It never has been. Mm-hmm. So that's beautiful.
Drinking poison and hoping the other one dies.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Exactly. Drinking poison, hoping the other person gets sick.
Unforgiveness. I mean, I've seen
that's the same thing
unforgiveness is such a tool of the enemy. Uh-huh. And I was just like, I need this gone. I need help to get it gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Micah, what I've heard from you a lot now in this conversation has just been the discipline. And it's not about discipline of like, you do this because it's the rules. It's I do this because I know it's what I'm supposed to do. And that I believe that when he's ready with his timing, because I did what I'm supposed to, he'll reward it, usually in ways we don't even understand.
Yep.
Like, you're not doing it for the reward. You're doing it because you have a relationship to him and he wants that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. An act of obedience too. Yeah. In that too. And I mean, for both of us, but we've struggled in the past and we still struggle to a degree, but not as nearly as we do have, is performance addiction. Oh, yeah. Like addicted to performance and achievement because we're both performers. And so that just carried in. And so we've just had to like learn about enjoying, like just process first and like enjoying the process and believing. And that's where that surrender comes in, and just surrendering that if I'm doing what I can do on my end, I'm just trusting that like I'm giving the rest up to God. It's like work up like it's up to us and pray like it's up to God. And then you just kind of give it to him when it's his timing, and just believe that the timing is actually going to be the best timing. Because if it is God's timing, it is always perfect. You can't speed up God's timing, but when God's timing comes, you can't slow it down. And so it's I think that's why I'm so, I guess, focused on just like the consistency and discipline, because that's not what's highlighted in society as much. We're in a culture and a society that you only see highlights, right, of people, and even in sports and also you go on ESPN, you only see the highlights. You don't see them practicing. You don't see them because it's boring, right? The process, it can be boring. Not like nobody wants to see that. No, like what doesn't get highlighted? Oh, we had a day where we just spent time together. We like grew in our relationship and our relationship with God. Not people are like, okay, well, like, are you millionaires yet? Like something that is going to be motivational. Yeah. And so for me, that's just something that I constantly have to remind myself, because I can get like that where I'm just like, oh, why aren't the results happening? Or like, why aren't, you can kind of put your identity in that a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, where that comes from.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I was thinking of, you kind of hit on, I'm trying to actually look it up while we speak here, but there was a guy in Acts, I want to say Gamaliel, something like, he started with a G. I'm seeing Gamaliel, here it is, in Acts 5. But what they were doing was they were trying to figure out, because they basically just lost Paul, they had sent out Saul of Tarsus and got back, now we have this guy Paul instead who's preaching the gospel. And when the Pharisees are trying to say, well, what are we supposed to send out? Who are we supposed to send? Because, the guy we sent just turned into a Christian. And what I loved was it was Galileo, if I'm saying his name right, I probably am butchering it, but he basically said, and I'm summing it up, if it's of God, nothing we do is going to stop it. Right. If it's not of God, nothing anyone does will allow it. It's God's going to get his way, so let's just let it be God. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times in our performance-based society, you nailed it, people try to force life as though they're the ones who are, the authors of it. And we're not. We're characters in a play. We're not the authors. I think C.S. Lewis, who once said that the only way that Shakespeare and Hamlet would ever meet was if Shakespeare wrote himself into the play. There's Jesus in flesh right there. That's exactly how it works. Yeah. So, and I love that you guys have there's so many different ways you guys have not only seen your faith, but it's been tested. And you've seen it get sharpened. You've seen it move out. So I love that. And what I really love the most is you guys aren't pastors. You're not. You guys aren't professors of theology and everything. You're just faith entered your life and you chose to follow it. And look at the results. So that's so beautiful. Thank you guys so much, really, for coming in and helping share with that. Okay, so do you guys have any fun events or big projects or anything that's kind of coming up that you want people to know about, or are you just gonna? There's nothing really on the works right now. Any fun things to throw in there?
Not necessarily.
No. Not at the moment. We're both working full time, and so our biggest goal is to just get to go full time, be able to transition out of our jobs so that we can go full time into content creation, entrepreneurship, and just to free up that time and bandwidth to do that. Yeah. And so
we have many ideas and dreams. They're just not. It's not God's timing for them yet.
There you go.
Yeah. I've wanted to start a podcast, and I think that's probably something down the road, but we don't have like a date or anything for that. But yeah, just we're just focused on our social media and putting out content right now, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
Awesome. You guys just keep being sniper evangelists. I love it. So, okay. So, on our side, for the people who are going to be able to experience all the different panelists and hear the questions, we obviously have a lot that is going to be about just kind of inspiring us to move forward. But what I want to do is I want to ask your guys' perspective. Since you're going to be on the panel, you're actually the ones asking, answering questions and kind of sharing testimony. You're putting yourselves on the spot. You're putting yourselves in the limelight. Everybody else gets to remain anonymous, and you can't. You have no choice. Everybody gets to know who you are now. And you got to stand boldly in your faith, which is beautiful. But for that purpose, then, what would you guys say? And I'd love for you each to answer it. What would be a success for you coming to the Christian Influencer Convention on the 26th of July?
That's great.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, sure. I would say probably exactly just like the way that I view having influence at all. I think there's really to me, it's about how can I impact someone for the long term? Because I find that what's the point of having 1 million people who follow you if not one person ever makes any kind of life change from it? I want someone's life to be different because they were impacted by it. And it's never me. I don't mean that it's me, but a way that I was used, someone, something that was said, or a piece of my testimony, whatever it may be, that helps someone on their journey and impacts them long term, or makes them maybe think slightly differently about something that impacts the results in their life long term. That is, to me, that's the whole point. I think that we're here on this earth to help each other progress, to sharpen one another. And so the ability to be able to share experience, and if one person makes sees an impact in their life because of something that they hear at the conference, that's what it's all about to me. It's about the long-term life change that people can see from associating with others. Like, we've been so changed by people who we've learned from and people who we've been around, and our whole life has been transformed because of people who've been willing to be vulnerable and honest when it was hard, and when they went through difficult things, and maybe when it didn't feel like the world was a friendly place for being outward with your faith, but they did it anyway. And we've been so greatly touched by people like that. So to me, that's what success is to me.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Micah, how about you?
I mean, very similar. I was just like, all I can do, is speak from the heart, speak for, just praying that God speaks through us, because that's the best way to really reach people, I think, when it comes to that kind of format. And so just pray that something in our story or something that we say can help somebody through, maybe they're going through the same thing that she went through, in their life as well. And it can help them get through that. And so it's really just, it's impact, and whatever that means in a lot of different ways, whether it's in their faith. I would love for people that are going there, not for all of the people that are going to be Christians, because I would love for the people that are going just to be interested in seeing, maybe us or other people, but then through going, they explore their faith a little bit more, and they start to go on that journey because they see, people that maybe they follow speak about it in a way that they don't feel like condemned, or it's heard in a different light or a different way, where it's not just rules, where maybe some people have that's what's pushed them out of pursuing a faith in the past. So I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. I think I just add on. Sorry, I love talking about these kinds of things. You
should have went second.
Yeah. When I think it's a tool of the enemy that he can make us feel alone in the things that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's big.
So for people to see that, just because we have a platform and we share things that are fun and whatever it may be, people get an idea of what your life is like in their head when they see you on social media. So the ability to be like, we struggle day to day, just like you do, and whatever, maybe a struggle that you're going through, we are too, or we have as well, and you're not alone in what you're going through. There's many more people out there who are just doing their best, and you're not alone. It's like we're all here to be a hand to pull each other up. So yeah,
I love it. Yeah, and guys, I don't know if you're aware, but we are going to have some pastors. We're going to have some grief counselors. There's going to be people on site. If people have encounters, they're not going to be left on their own to be like, I don't know what to do with this. No problem. We're going to have people there who can help guide you. So
cool.
There's going to be an altar call. We're going to have live music. It's going to be a lot of fun. So July 26th, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be at the South Point Convention Center. Can't wait to see you guys there. I'll be there too, so we'll all get to hang out and have a good time. And you know what? I love it that when two or more are gathered in his name, he says he'll be there. So we know that God's going to be in attendance too. That's going to be beautiful. Everyone who's joining us now and watching, I want to thank you again for chiming in. Mike and Sarah, I want to thank you guys for just setting aside some time and sharing your testimony with us. Can't wait to see you guys in July. God bless everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.